All right, so this week we're in week 3. Hopefully adjusting to online work with all of your classes is going a little bit smoother. We are going to start now actually solving rational equations. So we've looked at multiplying and dividing them. We've looked at adding and subtracting. And those are just ways that we can simplify them so that it's easier for us to work with. But now we're actually going to look at solving them. So what happens now when you have them in an equation? So a rational equation is an equation with a variable in the denominator. Okay, so when something's in the denominator, when you have a variable in the denominator, you have to check for extraneous solutions or solutions where you would get 0 on the denominator. So if we look at this first example here, okay, we look at the equation that's in blue. You have 1 over x plus 2 equals 3 over x minus 3. First thing you need to do is what's written here in red is test for your extraneous solutions. You set your denominator, or factors that have x on the denominator, equal to 0 and solve. Whatever number you get, that's a value that x cannot equal. Okay, it can't equal that value. So in this case, x can't equal -2 or +3. We've been practicing that with all of our forms of simplifying rational equations, so that shouldn't be new information. What we're going to do though today with solving is solving using cross multiplication or cross product. Cross multiplication, kind of same thing. You guys have probably seen something like this with just regular fractions, like 1/2 equals 3/4 or something like that, in order to solve for it. So cross multiplication, as long as you have only one fraction on either side of your equal sign, you can do this cross multiplication or cross product rule. Okay, and you're going to see that work here demonstrated in green. So you take your numerator of your first fraction, multiply it to your denominator of your second, and then you set that equal to the numerator of your second times the denominator of your first. Okay, and then you can solve for it. Cross product rule or cross multiplication rule allows you to get rid of the fractions when you're solving. So then the green work here just shows us simplifying everything out, multiplying and getting a value of -9/2. And we can check, we're allowed to have a value of -9/2. That's not one of our excluded values. Okay, so here at the bottom, just a note, you guys probably should write this down if you're taking notes with this. You can use cross product method for rational equations that have two expressions set equal to each other. Okay, so two expressions means that you have one fraction equal to another fraction. So here's just some practice. We're going to look at two examples kind of on our own. So first one here that we have is x over 5 equals x plus 1 over 2. So we only have one fraction on either side. I don't have x in the denominator, so x can be whatever value I want. Now I'm going to cross multiply. So my first one is 2 times x, and then my second one is 5 times x plus 1. Make sure when you're multiplying them that you put any of the x plus 1 or x minus 1 in a parenthesis so that you know you have to distribute the number in front. So our next line here, we're going to simplify, and I'm going to distribute that 5. 2x equals 5x plus 5. Now I'm going to solve for x. So I subtract 5x from both sides, and then divide both sides by -3. So x equals -5/3. Okay, pretty straightforward. If you're feeling confident, go ahead and pause this video and try the next one on your own. So the next one, we have 2 over x minus 2 equals 3 over x plus 3. Again, we only have one fraction on either side. I do have some excluded values. Okay, so that's any factor that has an x in the denominator. So I have two of them. X minus 2 can't equal 0. So I have an x minus 2 equals 0. Sorry, cannot equal 0. Then an x plus 3 can't equal 0. So x can't equal 2. And x can't equal a -3. You guys can probably do some of that algebra in your head, so if you don't need to write all the steps, that's fine. If you still need the practice, go ahead and do all the work with it. All right, now that I've listed my excluded values, I'm going to cross multiply. So I have a 2 times x plus 3 equals 3 times x minus 2. Okay, I have to distribute these numbers in front for both sides of my equation. So I have a 2x plus 6 equals 3x minus 6. And now I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 6 first from both sides. Then I'm going to subtract 3x. I end up with a negative x equals negative 12, so to get that to be positive, I'm just going to divide both sides by negative 1. So x equals 12, and I'm allowed to have that value, so that's your solution. Okay, so this stuff here should be pretty straightforward. If you paused the video and tried it on your own, and you got the same answer that I did, awesome, good job. Here are just kind of a summary of steps for cross product rule or cross multiplication rule. You turn it into a polynomial equation. Okay, so polynomial means that it's all one line. You don't have any fractions. You simplify the equation, and then you solve it. So simplify is when we were distributing the value so that we're getting rid of any type of parenthesis or extra steps. And then solving is when you're actually getting a value for x. Okay, so that's your steps from your few examples. You should have been able to get those steps kind of on your own. We're going to do 2 more examples, and then that'll be it for this video. So it's a little bit shorter, but you guys will have some practice problems then to work on as well. All right, our next one that we have, first thing we need to do is list excluded values. So x can't equal 4, and x can't equal positive 3. So I didn't show all the work for those, but I just took the factors that were on my denominator, set them equal to 0, and then solved for x. And I got a positive 4 and a positive 3. Now that I've listed those values, I can go ahead and cross multiply. 5 times x minus 3 equals 2 times x minus 4. Going to distribute. That's my simplifying part of my step. And then I'm going to solve. So I am going to subtract 2x from both sides. Then add 15 to both sides. And then divide both sides by 3. So I have x equals 7/3, and I'm allowed to have that. So that is my solution. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with your last one. If you have not paused the video and tried any of the problems on your own, do so with this one. Okay, I'm confident that you guys can pick this stuff up pretty quickly. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video. You should notice that you don't have any values on the denominator with x, so you don't need any excluded values, so we can simply cross multiply. So I have 4x, and I have 3 times x minus 1. I need to simplify by distributing that 3. And then I need to solve for x. So x should equal a negative 3. Okay, and that's it for cross multiplying. Okay, so that's one method that we're going to use for solving rational expressions. Later this week, you'll see the other method that we're going to use, but make sure that you're confident with this one. You will get a practice worksheet that's posted alongside of this video, so try those problems. Again, with all of these homework assignments, try problems until you feel confident. For this lesson, you might not have to try too many problems because you may be pretty confident already after doing the practice problems from the video. Try some of the problems at the end of the worksheet because typically the ones at the end of the worksheet are going to be a little bit more challenging. Okay, so if you're feeling pretty confident, then skip to some of the problems at the end to make sure that you can do the more challenging problems. And then you guys will hear from me on Wednesday.